Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome yet again to another show of Lunch Guide. I am your host Chef Andy, and today we are going to be working with a beautiful tilapia dish. We're also going to be incorporating a bit of the local Kenyan arrowroot. Without further ado, I'm just going to introduce my ingredients before we continue. So from my left, which is your right, I have some chopped coriander, I've got some honey, some mayonnaise and some salt. I have one hard-boiled egg already peeled, a bit of gherkins, a bit of oregano. I've got also some hot sauce and some apple cider vinegar. I've got a nice green lemon there, some black pepper, some paprika and some bicarbonate of soda. And covered here, I also have a nice beautiful tilapia fillet. In the big bowl, I have a bit of all-purpose flour and I have some regular cold water. Without further ado, we're going to jump into a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're just going to go straight into the dish. See you in a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from the short break. For those who missed the introductory bit of the show, we are going to be working with a bit of tilapia and a bit of arrowroots today. So without further ado, I'm just going to take you right into the coating bit of this dish. So basically what we want to do now is we want to coat our tilapia fillet. So I'm just going to quickly unwrap this. Right, so nice beautiful tilapia fillet there. So first things first, we're just going to pat that dry. Remember, we don't want the fillet to be very wet on the outsides, because we're definitely looking forward to having it get that butter stuck to it. So first thing I do is I pat it completely dry, and definitely do it on both sides. Make sure there is not any excess amount of fluids on the surface of your fish. If you're working with frozen fish, I recommend to allow it to thaw completely. Make sure it's completely defrosted before you decide to cook, because two things could happen. Either the water could leak out and really just ruin your butter, or you could actually put your fish in the oil and it might actually explode on you, because remember, you're working with hot oil. You really don't want that to come into contact with any water, all right? So I'm just going to salt my fillet there. I'm just going to use a bit of regular iodized salt. So the idea of salting the tilapia fillet before we coat it, first of all, is to get all the excess water out. So what happens is the salt brings out all the water from the fish. Just going to do the same thing on the other side. Right, so all we're going to do now is let that sit for a little bit. And then I'm just going to take you back to this side. So I have some regular unseasoned flour here. So to that I'm going to add a bit of black pepper. I'm going to add a bit of paprika. And then I'm going to add a bit of oregano. I'm gonna add my bicarbonate. About 1 teaspoon is always safe to go with. And then last but not least, I'm going to add some honey. So the trick here for the honey is basically just to give it a bit of color and also a bit of flavor. All right, so we're just gonna go for it now. We're just going to give that a nice quick mix with a whisk. And lastly, I'm just going to add some water to that. So remember to add your water little by little. Remember, you're not too sure of how much water your flour can take at this point. So you want to be very careful not to add all your water at once. Right, so I like to just keep going, adding little by little. So what you're looking for is a buttery consistency, something more like a cake batter mixture. So it should not be too wet, otherwise it will not be able to do the task that you want it to do. Remember, you want it to be crispy, you want it to be a little thick. Just going to mix that properly. Give it a nice mix all through. All right, very simple. So if you can be able to see, the nice thick strings from the butter. You should be able to actually form a bit of strings on the top. That's when you know your butter is just right. So with the help of your whisk, you should be able to just get those nice thick strings falling from your whisk as you lift. Right, so in a pot we already have some oil heating up, so I'm just going to turn that a little higher. Remember, at this point we want the oil to be really hot because we want to cook the fish really quickly and in the shortest time possible. So I'm just going to use my whisk, and all I'm going to do is let a drop of the butter fall in there. And as soon as it actually starts to bubble and come to the surface, I know my oil is nice and hot, it's ready to go. Right, so just going to take that out. And now all we're going to do is we're just going to grab the fish, and this is just going to go straight into the butter. So make sure to just give it a nice press through there. Turn it as well. Make sure to cover both sides really properly. All right. So feel free to play with your bowl as well. Make sure to get as much coating as you can on the fish. Remember, you'll only be coating this once. Right. Nice, beautiful coating there. All right, once that's coated, always just give it a nice lift off the bowl. Make sure to allow any excess of that to just fall back into the butter, into your bowl. And straight from there, we'll just dip that into some hot oil. Be careful not to drop it too quickly, otherwise you might burn. And it's as simple as that. So you can be able to see from the camera there, it starts to bubble up, it just thickens immediately. Another trick I'll show you, I always like to do this with my fingers. Just grab a bit of the butter and put a bit of that right on top of your mixture. Right, so just going to go with a little more. That should be about enough. So remember, this is just to give it a little bit of crunch. And as I mentioned earlier, the technique here is to cook it as fast as you possibly can, in the shortest time possible. Right, so we're just going to give that a turn. So it's now browned on one side. We're just going to get that to toss and cook over on the other side as well. There we go. So as you can see, beautiful, nice, thick crust. You can actually be able to tap it and hear it. It's nice and thick. Right, so we're just going to get rid of our chopping board there. It's going to clean our surface quickly. So remember, the technique here is to always be as quick as you possibly can. Remember, the idea is to cook the fish as fast as you possibly can. Try also not to get your fingers caught up with the oil as well when you're dropping it in there. Be very careful when you get to that process. So now I'm just going to take my fish out. Always have a rack next to you just to allow you to get all that excess oil to drop off a little faster. Right, so that's nicely coated on both sides. Nice and crispy, beautiful dark color there from the butter. All I'm going to do is I'm going to set that aside and allow that to cool off. Probably grab all that excess butter from the oil. Take that out. Alright, so nice simple technique of making buttered fish. We've been working with some local tilapia, so I'm just going to turn that off, put that aside. We've been working with some beautiful tilapia, very local, very simple technique. We're just going to give that a bit of time to cool off, and then when we come back from the short break, I'm going to show you the last bit of the dish, basically where we're going to be plating it. I'll show you how to make a beautiful sauce to go with your fish. And we're just going to make a nice simple accompaniment to go with that. See you after the short break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We took a small short commercial break and now we are back. For those who missed out on the introductory bit of the dish today, we were working with some beautiful local tilapia. We made a batter from that with some flour, some bicarb, some seasoning and some honey. As you can be able to see, that nice, rich, beautiful color. It's actually not overcooked. It's actually the honey that's in there. So that's what we were looking for, a nice, beautiful darkness to it. Now we are just about ready to go for the last bit of the plating process. So I'm just going to quickly take you through the sauce firstly. So for the sauce, I'm going to be making a nice simple tartar sauce. And for that, we're going to be working with some coriander, some mayonnaise, some gherkins, some egg, a hard-boiled egg, some hot sauce and some vinegar, some paprika, some salt and pepper to taste. So without further ado, we're just going to combine our ingredients in here quickly. So I'm just going to go for the gherkins first, and then the coriander, fresh chopped coriander, a nice big tablespoon of regular mayonnaise, and then for hard-boiled egg, we're just going to grate that in there. So just quickly going to grate that quickly in there. Very simple technique, a little messy. Right, and last but not least, a bit of salt, a pinch of black pepper, and then some paprika. And now lastly, a bit of vinegar and a bit of the hot sauce. Right, so we're just going to give that a nice quick mix. So be careful to avoid the hot sauce if you're having kids having this meal. Alternatively, you can make the sauce without the hot sauce, so you're not really missing much out of it. You can also serve it on the side. All right, so our mayonnaise is now ready. Just going to clear this quickly. All right, very, very simple technique of making your sauce. So I'm just going to go for the plating now. So all I'm going to do is, I always like to use the back ends of the lime, of a lemon rather. So I'll just show you how to get those nice, beautiful chunks. So as I said, it's always nicer to slice your lemon this way because first of all, you don't have the excess, the strain of actually trying to get your seeds out of the lemon. This way you actually get nice, beautiful, squeezable slices and you don't actually have to worry about any seeds being in there. Right, so we're just gonna go for the plating. Just gonna grab some tongs. So here I have some cooked arrowroot that I had made earlier. I like to serve it as naturally as possible. So I'm just going to move those over to the plate. So remember, these were pre-cooked, so this is cooked through. I always cook mine with the skin on and then peel them right afterwards. So all you do to this, basically just a bit of salt in some water, nice pinch of a small drizzle of olive oil, and you just let them cook until they're done. Always use a sharp knife to check if they're soft right through to the inside. And that's just the best way to make sure your arrowroot is cooked. So now we're just going to go for the fish as well. We're just going to move that onto our plate. So as you can see, nice, beautiful, chunky size there. Right, and the lemon, we're just going to set that on the side like that. And last but not least, I always squeeze a bit of lemon juice on top of the fish. So very simple technique, very easy to make at home. And now just to add to that, we're just going to go with a bit of the tartar sauce that we just made. So for those who missed out on what went into this, there's a bit of paprika, a bit of coriander, a bit of hot sauce, a bit of apple cider vinegar, some gherkins, mayonnaise, a hard-boiled egg grated in there. And all you do is give it a mix, use some salt and pepper to aid you in seasoning it. And that is all. Right, ladies and gentlemen, nice, simple, quick, beautiful, enjoyable, healthy. There's not really enough words to describe this beautiful dish in front of you today. From my end, it's been a pleasure hosting the show today. You have been tuned in to Lunch Guide. I also recommend that you do follow our Facebook page, leave your comments, leave your inquiries, leave any questions as well. From the studio and from myself, it's been a pleasure. I hope you guys are going to be trying this at home. Try it for your lunch break. Try it even for a light dinner as well. It works both ways. So from my end, it's been a pleasure hosting today. Have a lovely afternoon. Enjoy lunch. See you on the next show.